Radio good neighbors, we're back again. We're on the way home now. It's raining. So, Coby, who's this guy this psychologist guy with a talk show?
Dr. John Deloney.
Dr. John Deloney. I like him.
Dr. John Deloney.
I like him. But I wanted to talk about him for a second because it's interesting. It makes me think
Big
a couple
crash.
things.
Big crash?
Don't look too much, otherwise we'll get in a crash. Well, I mean, you can look. I can't look. But anyways, it's interesting, right? Because somebody calls in. What happens as a caller? So far, the only thing I've heard, I don't know if he does anything else, but the only thing I've heard is people call in and he talks for
People
a couple
call in
minutes.
with their problems.
They call in with their problems. Yeah.
Therapist, kind of. And just, give some good advice.
Gives them advice. But it's interesting because he only spends a few minutes with each person, right?
It's 10 minutes.
Think so?
10, 15.
Okay, it's still short.
Something like that.
I think 15's pushing it.
10 probably.
Because we heard like 3 different people on the way to
Yes,
school
but
this
it was
morning.
on 1.5 speed.
All right. Okay, there you go. So, but anyways, regardless, it's a short session. And, you tell by the questions he asks and everything, they're very pointed questions, and he's like sort of getting at the point pretty quickly on each person. Now, does he have all of the information? No, he doesn't. He also only has one side of the story, right? He's only getting the information from one person, and that's from the caller, not from maybe the other person involved, whether it's a spouse or girlfriend, boyfriend, or other family member, whatever it is. So he doesn't have all the information, but nonetheless, he gets kind of straight to it. And one of the observations that I was kind of making was, well, he gets straight to it, but also, when you think about it, if you are the person listening to him, not just us as the listeners on the podcast, but I mean the caller, if you're the caller, the one with the problem, he's telling you just 2 or 3 main points of what you need to know. Right? Now, if you had an hour-long session with him, I could see that very quickly you would have way too much information that you wouldn't be able to do anything with it because you wouldn't remember most of it anyway. But if you have just a couple key takeaway points, and you roll with that, I'm willing to bet that the outcomes would be much better. Now, I'm not saying by one session
Yeah,
only
but
with a
usually,
guy.
if you have an actual longer session, there's going to be kind of a summary at the end. What to do, points that have been explained and talked about. So.
But I'm wondering if it's more effective. I don't know if there's anybody who's a psychologist listening to us. Probably not, because I only have 37 subscribers. But
Hear that? At this moment in time, 37 subscribers.
37.
One day there will be 111,000.
there you go. And actually, the first thing we just heard was you put this podcast on, and that's why I said let's chat, was because a lady called in and said I was one of your original 17 subscribers. But anyways, I'm wondering if from a psychological perspective, psychiatrist or psychologist's perspective, if it would be better to just have a very directed 15-minute session and you do that 4 times instead of 1 hour-long session. And I wonder how more effective it might be. Because here's the thing, as a practitioner myself, there's a lot of, I'm going to say, intuition that goes into every session with each patient. What I mean by that is we don't talk about everything all the time, but sometimes you just go with your intuition, and when you're in the flow and you're in the zone, right? You're just seeing patient after patient, and you're in the zone and then this flow. Yeah, that's when you get the best results. If you've ever been an athlete, you said? Well, I was just saying, if you've ever been like an athlete, when you're training or when you're doing the sport, whether it's in a game or whatever, all the athletes will talk about the same thing, about being in the zone. And when you're in the zone, it's just you're so focused on what's going on that everything just falls into place, and you're doing everything's going awesome. And I find that in my job as well. When I get focused and I'm in the zone, I don't know, that intuition kind of comes into it. You just give this, you do this, you do that, you suggest this, you talk about this, and you tend to get much better results that way. And I'm wondering if he finds that as well or not, with short sessions versus a longer session where things can maybe drag out a little. I don't know. What do you think?
I disagree.
Do you? Okay.
I think therapy
Tell me
is
why.
completely different to physical examination, because you're evaluating mental problems and you need time to speak and time to get personal and open up and really discuss things and have a really open conversation, and you can't do that in 10-15 minutes. Something completely different.
That's true. But yet he has a very successful talk show on it.
Yeah, he has a talk show because people listening have time to listen and then hear those points. But it's not, sure, some things may be personal that he says to the people listening, but it's not directed at them, and it's not, you can take things from it for sure. But,
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think
for an
I'm
actual therapist in practice, it would not work.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to suggest that it should only be done that way. I think I'm just saying I think it's one valuable tool.
Because this is like, then it would just feel like, imagine you're going in for a therapy session, 50 minutes, you go sit down and they just kick you out, and then they have the next one come in like that. And like, if you're just going to somebody to say something and then get an answer or whatever, then you could just ask ChatGPT. You could say, hey, I have this problem, what do I do?
Yeah.
And then it tells you. And
Sure.
that's basically the same kind of thing. It's just this not lack of emotion, but like, there's not really time to get into something really deep with
Yeah, and I'm not saying it should never be done, the long ones, and I'm just saying I'm wondering if it would have some value to have some short ones.
Maybe.
Right? And so here's another thing. Comparing, say, a psychologist to a life coach. Right? Now this would be a very, very big generalization. Sometimes a psychologist wants to talk more about the past. What's gone in the past? Why are you here? Like, what's gone on that got you to this point? And then you sort of try and figure out where you want to go and how you want to get there, and the psychologist help guiding you there.
We should go to crystal ball to see the future.
Magic 8 ball.
Yeah.
Or a life coach tends to be more like, all right, this is where you're at. What are we going to do now to move forward? Now, I'm not saying there's not overlap between the two. And I'm not saying a life coach can handle a lot of stuff, because they're not trained well enough from a psychological perspective to handle psychological matters necessarily. You know, like so they will refer to a psychologist when they hear stuff or feel stuff where they feel that they should, right? They're taught in their training that sometimes they're going to have to make referrals to a psychologist or a psychiatrist. But I'm just saying there's a place for a life coach, which is saying, this is where you're at, let's move forward now. Which is very helpful when somebody doesn't necessarily want or need to just talk about the past. And that's where I'm thinking, that's where I kind of thought that with this podcast guy, Dr. John, something like that, where he seems like he's just giving very pointed information to, this is what you should do to look forward.
Yeah,
and I think that's kind of cool. I think there's a potential place for it. Not saying to take over, but
I think it works
in
in its place as a talk show. That's what people listen to.
Because as listeners, we're learning stuff too from it.
But I don't think that works as somebody going to pay for a therapy session, and then you get a 10-minute talk and tell you some very broad.
Yeah, it'd probably just be online.
That
would make
not,
sense to go.
Because then again, like as you said, you're not getting the whole story.
Yeah.
You can't really guide someone and tell somebody what to do with their life and make big decisions by knowing something from a 5-minute conversation.
Well, some people are, because they're willing to call in. But then what we don't know.
You still don't know the whole story.
Right. And then what we don't know is, what are the outcomes? You know, we don't know in the end, was it good advice or bad advice? Right? You know, we heard about that girl who was calling in about whether or not she should invite her biological father to her wedding. You know, and let's say that happened a couple weeks ago, and now she's married, and she didn't invite him, or she ended up going against the advice and did invite him. Who knows? We don't know what the outcome, and we don't know if it was a good outcome or a bad outcome. Right? So also, we're not getting that feedback as listeners to the show. which is, we don't know. Whereas a one-on-one session for an hour, you'd get some of that feedback. True that.
So I think it works in its place.
In its place. That's all I was saying too. In its place. Is there a bigger place than what it is just as a talk show, or should it just stay as a talk show?
Talk show.
Just a talk show. All right, fair enough.
I think therapy is the way it is because it works.
Does it always work?
No.
I wonder if some people get caught up in therapy too much because they're spending too much time in the past in not letting go of what they need to let go of.
It's possible.
Now, I'm not saying that you should not be looking at the past and recognizing how the past has got you to where you are. Right? I think that's important. I do think that's important. But at some point, you gotta say, all right, this is what's happened.
Learn things from your past and apply them to your future.
Right. Exactly.
True that.
So, that's all I gotta say right now.
I have a headache.
You have a headache? I have a backache. My back is all on me muscles. So, is your headache on the left side or right side?
Every side.
Pardon me?
Every side.
Every side, front and back.
Yeah. And I think it's because of the blue light glasses. I don't know why it's supposed to do the opposite. But I was doing research on it, and apparently it's bullcrap.
Is it? I thought they were supposed to be good for you at night.
Possibly, but
To use them only at night, because during the day you get blue light. And that's the thing, is at night you don't want the blue light because then that messes up your sleep.
Yeah, because the blue light stops the production of melatonin in the brain before sleep, so you won't feel tired.
Yeah, so therefore you also want the blue light during the day, so don't wear them during the day.
Why would you want the blue light during the day?
Because then it helps you to be more awake.
Okay, but it's not dependent on the blue light.
Oh, it has a lot to do with it, yeah.
It's not dependent on the blue light if you're awake or if you feel tired.
One of the best things you can do for your health, one of the best things you can do, every morning when you wake up, look at the sun. As soon as the sun rises, look at the sun for 15 seconds.
When the sun rises, not after it's lit.
Yeah, no, when it's up, way up there. But still, getting natural sunlight is very helpful for circadian rhythms. It's helpful which has a lot to do with melatonin production. So it's a matter of producing melatonin when you want it, when you need it, and not producing it when you don't want it.
Hey, I would if I could.
Well,
What if there was a sun to see? I haven't seen the sun in like 2 months, 3 months, 4 months.
It's true.
I haven't seen the sun in.
True that. We got a happy light at the office behind the front desk.
I'm so happy for you, Dad.
Yeah. Just come to the office, get happy. I feel like ice cream. I don't want ice cream. I don't want the feeling that comes after it, but I want the ice cream.
I don't even want the taste.
Nothing tastes as good as fit feels.
True that.
Yeah.
Being unfit and being bloated.
Bloated sucks too.
Being unable to do things with your body is the most demoralizing thing.
Yeah.
And then instead of solving that problem by changing it, you just eat more. It's funny how people work.
Yeah. Gluttons for punishment.
Huh?
Gluttons for punishment. I need to eat something when I get home. I'm starving. I don't know what I want. I want something.
Yeah.
Alright, so I'm tired. You got a headache.
Peace, yo.
I'm hungry.
Peace. Wait, you press it.
I press it.
With your left hand.
I can't press it with my left hand.
Do it with your left hand.
My left hand is stuck down here.
Do it with your left hand.
Hey, look, the field's flooded.
Wait.
Field's flooded.
Do it with your left hand.
I can't.
Wait.
It's not going.
Do it with your left hand.
I can't.
What are you pointing at? I just do it.
Look how much flooded it is.